Keen947, aka Wolfkeen, and welcome to my lightning round speed impressions for Season 4, Round 2. So let's not wait any longer, because I've been waiting too long to do this video. Let's get started with the next 6 episodes of Season 4. Hey, look, it's Manhattan! Very weird saying that since I'm from New York. I'll be honest, guys, when I first watched this episode, I absolutely adored it and had a lot of fun with it. But after watching it again, I've got to admit, the magic's kind of gone for me. But it's not a bad episode, I'm just rather mixed towards it. So the episode pretty much begins with Rarity heading to Manhattan for Fashion Week, where basically she's going to be competing against other fashionistas. What happens is that she runs into a pony by the name of Suri Polar Mare, who apparently wants to take a part of Rarity's fabric to help with her own designs. But instead of just using it for accents, she ends up using it to make a copycat lineup for herself. The difference is that Suri Polar Mare was able to show hers off first, and now this makes Rarity look like the copycat, and that's a bad thing for her. So what ends up happening is that she decides to have her friends help her make a new line of dresses, but this also means going through manipulation and otherwise, and this leads to Rarity kind of feeling like that she used her friends for granted and otherwise, and of course, that's kind of the whole point of the episode. We learn pretty early on that Suri Polar Mare believes in the idea that the only way you can get ahead is by taking advantage of others, and otherwise. I mean, that is something that we've seen in many ways, where you feel like you have to step on someone if you want to make it far in some industry, and that's kind of what Suri Polar Mare is echoing, where you have to step on people in order for you to get ahead. And we do get introduced into this other character that works for Suri Polar Mare by the name of Coco Pamel, and unfortunately she doesn't really get much interaction with Rarity, and that's kind of one of the problems I have with the episode. Because this is the first key episode where Coco is relating the message that she learned to Rarity, but Coco and Rarity don't really talk as much as later key reveals, so that's kind of one problem I have in and of itself. The other problem I have is that I really don't like the songs in this episode. Generosity, at least the first one, I don't really like it too much. I love the reprisal. I feel like the emotion in that was a lot better. But the first version of Generosity, I found it to be very much like them trying to cram Rarity's generosity in our heads like a fucking sledgehammer. So yeah, that was my biggest problem with the Generosity song. Now, granted, songs do not factor into my overall enjoyment of an episode, but this was a theme that continued throughout the rest of the episode, Rarity being overly generous and it being taken advantage of. It does lead to a bit of an annoyance in some cases, because people have brought it up. Rarity has never been this overly generous in other episodes, and now here she is pretty much being, like, yeah, overly generous. So all in all, what do I think about this episode? I don't have a major problem with it. I still had some enjoyment out of it. I mean, the city of Manhattan was cool to look at. I liked Suri Polar Mare as a villain because it was a perfect love to hate this person. Coco was cute, I'll give her that. She is a cute character, but I wish she had more interaction. And I do like the fact that even though the main 6 were taken advantage of, they still supported Rarity. That just goes to show that even when Rarity is at her worst, it's not like they know her to be this way forever. They know she'll eventually snap back and, you know, come back to her old self, which is very good among friends, where you know your friend will have like a bad day, but you know they'll come back eventually. So all in all, I find this to be an okay episode. Do I love it? No. But do I hate it? Nah. I think it's okay, and I know a lot of people do love this episode, so yeah, I still had fun with it, just not as good as I remember. I'm gonna be humming this damn song in my head for the next few weeks. This episode is honestly one kind of like Rarity Takes Manhattan, where, you know, I had a different opinion of it at one point, but it's changed as of now. But unlike Rarity Takes Manhattan, where the magic kind of disappeared for me and now it's an okay episode, this episode I honestly feel is a lot better than I gave it credit for. So basically the episode begins with Pinkie Pie looking up genealogy, if I'm saying it correctly, from Twilight, and then she finds out she might be a relative to the Apple family, or at least a very distant cousin. To the point that they decide to go on basically an Apple road trip to Goldie Delicious, I think the name was, and basically try to find out for sure if Pinkie is in fact a relative of the Apple family. What ends up happening is that the Apple family kind of bicker and stuff, trying their best to keep a good face in front of Pinkie Pie to show how good their family is, but it does kind of fall apart as they begin to argue, have conflicting ideologies of how they should handle the entire situation, until the end where Pinkie kind of tells them that they shouldn't be worried about like how they're acting. They may have like bickered and otherwise, but they've always remained a unit. The whole point of the episode is literally showing how strong family can be. It's like This is the one thing I like about the Apple family. They have the greatest family dynamic. It's really great to see Granny Smith, Big Mac, Apple Bloom, and freaking Applejack interacting and talking to each other, having to work as a unit. It shows how strong and close they are as a family. And seeing this episode where they're bickering, having conflicting ideas and otherwise, that's family. That's just family in a nutshell. Family is going to argue. Family is going to bicker. Family is going to disagree. Families are going to fight. But regardless of all that, you still forgive one another and you realize each other's mistakes because you're a family. You care for one another. And that's the whole point of this episode. Now, of course, the episode pretty much ends, on an idea that there's no idea if Pinkie is, in fact, a cousin of the Apple family or not. But Applejack says that doesn't matter because, in the end, she feels like family with them. And that's kind of the thing. I do like that kind of a message where you don't have to be family with someone to be a part of that, and part of that family. It reminds me of the Mafia 3 tagline, family is not who you're born with, it's who you die for. But that's what I'm trying to say. I kind of believe in this idea that just because you're born into a certain family, that doesn't mean they have to be your one and only family or your true family. Because let's face it, some families can be right. So yes, I agree with the idea that Pinkie Pie, possibly being a member of the Apple family, or, I kind of like the way they ended it like that because it leaves the question up in the air and maybe we'll get an answer for it later. And if Pinkie feels like she's a part of the Apple family personally and emotionally, then why not, right? All in all, what do I think about this episode? I enjoyed this a lot more now than I did back then because I'm a family guy myself. I believe family is one of the most important things in life, and I always try my best to be someone who's good in their family, whether it's helping my mother, helping my nephew, or otherwise. I'm a family man myself. So seeing this episode and seeing how close the Apple family is, especially trying to accept Pinkie Pie into all this, it hits a personal note for me. So yeah, I really like this episode, and I might be putting it in my favorite category. Oh boy, here comes the nutshell. It's no secret that I absolutely despise this episode, and I'm not one of the only people who feel this way. But there are so many reasons why I hate this episode that it would take me a while to explain it all, but I'm going to do my best to explain why I hate this episode. So, to put it simply, this episode is... And that's only a fraction of the problems I have with this episode. But you know what? I'm not going to blow my load in this one video. I've got more to say about this episode, so pay attention for a future video about me talking about this episode more in depth because there is so much more that I could talk about and so much more beating with a hammer that I need to give to this episode. How in the world do you make Discord boring? No, seriously, this episode is the boringest I've ever seen Discord throughout the entirety of the series, and that's saying a lot when you consider the kind of character Discord is. The episode pretty much begins with Twilight receiving a letter from Princess Cadence saying that she'll be able to actually make it out to visit Twilight for once. And basically Twilight is going to be going to a Star Swirl like gathering of thing with Cadence, but what ends up happening is that Discord ends up coming into the episode with this weird flu that he seems to have. I think it was called blue flu or something, but what ends up happening is that after he causes most of the other main six to go away or otherwise, and then he goes to Twilight and Cadence, he begins having to make them care for him to the point that he makes them go to the outer reaches of Equestria to get like this stupid flower, nearly getting killed by a tassel worm, and then when they finally get back to Discord, he's all fine and well and said that he did all this for a friendship lesson. Okay, like I said, I don't like the way that they approach this episode. This is not a bad episode, luckily, but this is one that not only has no kind of like impact for me, but also is very boring to watch because, like I said, Discord is boring here. It really feels like that he's not at his like 100%, and before someone says, oh, it's probably due to the sickness, he fakes the sickness. He's been fine the whole time, as it's been stated, and he only gets sick legitimately at the very end of the episode. So him being boring like this really kind of makes it hard for me to like this. And not to mention, one of the biggest problems with this episode, and I think anybody can agree with me on this one, is that it takes forever for the plot to get going. Like, by the time we make it to the 12 12-minute mark, finally the actual plot of the episode comes in. That is a long freaking time for the actual plot of the episode to come in. Almost 12 to 10 minutes in. That's horrible pacing when you really think about it. And like I said, I just didn't like the way Discord was approached in this episode. It really felt like he was just being a massive jerk to be a massive jerk. At least in other episodes, when he was being a massive jerk, he actually had a lesson to teach in, you know, in some form or fashion. Here, it just felt like he was being a massive jerk. And that makes me sad, because I would love an episode of Twilight and Cadence just being together and maybe going through some kind of conflict or something. But Discord rearing his head right into the episode and just kind of being very boring and otherwise, it kind of sours the episode and makes it very much like a... just like a, it's there, but it's nothing important. All in all, what do I think about this episode? It's boring. I mean, the only part that I liked was the battle with the tassel worm, and I did like the song that Discord had, but it really did not feel like a song. It just felt like Discord was just, I don't know what the right word is. I'm pretty sure someone could put a comment down below on what it's supposed to be called, but all in all, what do I think about it? All in all, I find this episode to be very boring. It took too long for the plot to actually come in, and I really feel like this episode had a lot of wasted potential with an episode involving Twilight and Cadence. So yeah, this is probably going to appear my least favorite. Not too high, but it's definitely going to be in there. You know something? I'm kind of curious if we'll ever see a goof-off variant of this within the bro analyst community. Now, just to be fair here, I did already do a full-on review of this episode with my friend Jason, aka Pokebrony as he used to go by, and it is uploaded on my channel, though I will tell you this right now, it's not the best video to be, you know, that we did. But a lot of our opinions and otherwise still stay true, and a lot of the points I'm about to make, I made in that video in a more further length. So, click over there to watch that video, but I'll summarize what it is I'm going to be saying. The episode pretty much has Pinkie Pie planning a party for Rainbow Dash's birth anniversary, which is basically the day that she was born, and also the day that she moved to Ponyville. So basically, she's going to be planning this party, but then we have a new character by the name of Cheese Sandwich, voiced by Weird Al Yankovic of all people, who is also a party planner and starts taking the limelight. What ends up happening is that after he takes the limelight, Pinkie begins to feel like that she's being replaced, and then after one point she decides to challenge Cheese Sandwich, as his name, into a goof-off. And after she loses, we get to hear more about his backstory, Cheese Sandwich's backstory. He pretty much was inspired by Pinkie to become a party pony, and then at the end we have Weird Al, well basically Cheese Sandwich, and Pinkie Pie collaborating in making a party that is amazingly epic for Rainbow Dash. Like I said, a lot of what I said about this episode has been said in my review. This episode is a musical episode, and I'm not the biggest fan of musicals, but I do like some of the songs in this episode. I like the way Pinkie was characterized. I loved Cheese Sandwich, and I especially loved the goof-off in many ways. So there's not much I can say here that I haven't already said in the review, so I'm going to keep this very short. All in all, I like this episode. I really feel like this was one of the best episodes of Season 4, and it definitely ended up on a lot of people's favorite lists, and it's definitely going to end up in mine. Like I said, if you want to know my full opinions about this episode in more depth, go ahead and check out the review that I did with Jason. Otherwise, to summarize, I love the music, I love Cheese Sandwich, I love Pinkie in this episode, I love the dynamics that we had in this episode, the goof-off was amazing, the moral was really good, and this was probably one of the best key reveal episodes that we got for the season. So yeah, I really freaking love this episode. Oh hey, a Rarity and Applejack dynamic that was done right! Now, to be fair, I don't fully love this episode. I find it to just be rather okay, and I know a lot of people don't like this episode, but the main reason I put it a little more up for myself is because I find it to be hilarious as hell. So pretty much the episode begins with this Ponyville Day festival that's going to be going on, and Rarity gets picked to pick the theme and otherwise. So she actually does come up with the theme of the festival, and then we begin to hear about this one pony that's going to be coming as well, by the name of Trenderhoof. Trenderhoof is, well, Rarity's newest crush in the show, to the point that she keeps saying it's her destiny to be with Trenderhoof and yada yada yada. We heard this with Prince Blueblood already. But what ends up becoming very funny within the episode is that we end up going into a weird kind of three-way where Trenderhoof Trenderhoof doesn't really have the same kind of emotional feelings towards Rarity, but he has these emotional feelings towards Applejack. So we get this very funny scenario of Rarity trying to be more Western just so she can get with Trenderhoof. And it's hilarious to see how far Rarity just goes with this idea of being a Western pony. It's amazingly hilarious. And how what makes this episode even better is that at one point Applejack decides to flip everything on its head and decide to become a proper pony. So we have Rarity acting like a Western pony, we have Applejack acting like a frou-frou pony. We just have like this whole like switcheroo that makes the entire episode more funny than it has to be. This is one of the main reasons I kind of like this episode, is because of how funny it is. The story is nothing too great, and I don't like Trenderhoof too much as a character. He's rather, I wouldn't say one note, but he's very bland. Like, his character is very bland. He's the stereotypical high society pony who wants to become, like, you know, a more grounded character from someone who's in a rustic setting or something along those lines. But I just love the reaction that he has within these situations. I just love the fact that Applejack and Rarity have like this flip of script which causes them to become so different in every way. And like I said, that's kind of the thing. There's not much I can really talk about with this episode because there's no real major story elements, no real songs or anything like that. It's mainly just Rarity and Applejack doing like a flip of script, mainly because of what was going on, into a weird three-way relationship, but I don't know, it's weird, this episode. So all in all, what do I think about this episode? I find it to be okay. I mean, I personally like it a little more than I should, so maybe this is considered a guilty pleasure for me, mainly because of the fact of how humorous this episode is. Otherwise, it's one that you can easily skip, and it's one that you won't get too angry about. You'll just be like, that was something. But if you like the kind of ending point where Rarity's trying to become more Western, Applejack becomes frou-frou, and yada yada yada, I'm pretty sure people will be laughing their asses off towards that moment. And thus ends round 2 of my lightning round speed impressions for season 4. I'm very sorry this took way longer than it should have, but I'm going to be doing my best to make these a little more common so that I can finish season 4, then begin my favorite and least favorite of season 4, 5, and 6. So pay attention for those in the near future. I will be working on round 3 of the lightning round speed impressions for season 4 in the near future, so that's really all I have to say at this point. So until next time, I'm Keen47, aka Wolfkeen. Hope you enjoyed, and until next time, guys, take care.